Don't forget, though, that there's a science behind this. There's images and videos that bring you up, and then scroll down, there's ones that make you feel really bad, and they bring you back up. And it's that kind of up and down state of arousal and then suppression that actually causes a greater level of suggestibility.
Of course.
And so then the suggestibility is your ability to accept, believe, and to surrender to information as the truth without analyzing it. And that's how you program people into choices and behaviors. And I believe you can program people into doing anything, right? If we're doing that without doing something, it's dangerous. Because the reward of doing something is, and overcoming or completing something, that reward system that naturally flows.
You've hacked it.
Yeah, you've hacked it, because now, look, I used to do this with my kids.
Or
because
you could say you've cheated. I'm sorry. I think it needs firmer language. You didn't just hack it, you cheated.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, what you did was you took away the lack. Because I would never let my kids work on do any technology until they finished their homework, until they finished all the chores.
Because
they
that's
fed
how
the
our brains
horses.
work, reward.
Yeah, so they finished everything, and then they weren't so prone to they didn't really care if they would play the computer or the PlayStation anymore, because they were kind of satisfied with themselves, right? It's only when we're in that lack that we're looking for something, and it's dangerous because it's invisible, right? So if we're relying on something outside of us like that to give us that kind of momentary rush, the problem with that is that when you start secreting dopamine in that way, you're putting out more than you typically put out, and so you're putting out a pleasure chemical, and the rush of all that dopamine, the cells in your brain go, whoa, this is way more than I can take. And so they close down. They become desensitized. So you need more the next time.
That's right.
So your pleasure centers start getting hijacked to a higher and higher level, right? And so in the absence of that stimulation, you can't find pleasure in anything. Not a sunset, not a walk with your dog, not seeing your grandparents. That's all boring because you just took on a nation, or you just overcame whatever, right? So then there's no reward in learning any longer, right? Learning should be the reward in and of itself. And so I do think that if you are not doing something, and you're getting that rush, you're in trouble. So the brain always is forecasting the future when it's aroused by these chemicals. So high beta means it's very high frequency, pay a lot of attention. And now if stress is created from not being able to control something, not be able to predict it, or the perception that something in your environment is going to get worse, the arousal of those hormones causes us to be uncertain. We're in the unknown, and we begin to think about all the people and objects and places that are known to us in our life. And the neocortex is a reflection of everything known in our outer environment. It's the autobiographical self. So as you start thinking about all the people and the objects and things and meetings and places and what could happen, this could go out, and the brain starts going in this high beta states, and the waves of different parts of the brain start beating out of order. And like a lightning storm in the clouds, the incoherence in the brain is causing the waves to interfere, and the energy in the brain begins to go down. It's a destructive interference. And some people then, they keep it aroused. They just keep driving the sports car on the freeway in first gear, and they become dependent on something out there that's going to make that feeling go away, whether they're scrolling through social media, whether they're getting on the phone and complaining to their best friend, whether they're watching a game or video gaming, whatever it is, they're reliant now on their outer environment to change their inner environment. Sometimes pharmaceuticals and sedatives and alcohol and drugs or whatever it is, makes the person feel better, right? So they need something exogenously, externally, to change their internal state. And this kind of predictable future that they live in, and that predictable future is them in the habit of doing the same thing as the day before. So in a sense, a lot of their future looks a lot like their past, because they're waking up, they're thinking the same way, they're making the same choices, they're doing the same things, they're reliving the same experiences, they're feeling the same emotions, and their body's on autopilot. And their body's dragging them into the same future based on what they did in the past. The response from whatever condition in the outer world gives the body an arousal. And so then if you keep doing that, you keep giving the body a rush of energy, the body becomes dependent on its external world to feel something.
So the arousal from your coworker, from your ex, from traffic, from the news, something in your outer environment is producing that kind of addictive rush of energy. Then people begin to use the problems and conditions in their life to reaffirm their addiction to that emotion. They need the bad job, they need the bad relationship, and they become addicted to the life that they don't even like. And so an addiction is something you think you can't stop, or an addiction is something you know that is not good for you, and you do it anyway. So then those emotions that we feel tend to drive our behaviors, and we behave as if we're in the past. And if those emotions are just really chemical records from past experiences, then we probably more than likely remember the past instead of remember the future. So 95% of who we are becomes, an automatic set of programs in our personality. So if we really teach a person how to think differently, how to act differently, and how to feel differently, give them new information, have them learn that information, have them teach that information back to somebody so it's wired in their brain, have them understand exactly what they're doing and why they're doing it so the how gets easier, remind themselves enough time to install the circuitry so that they have neurons and circuits in place to make a different choice, to do a different thing, create a different experience, and feel a different emotion. If you change your personality, would your biology change? The answer is 100% absolutely yes.
To be greater than your environment and to be greater than time. And so we discovered that when people take all of their attention off their body, and they go from a somebody to a nobody, to take all of the attention off all the people in their life that I identify with, to drop their identity, to drop their personality, partners, their friends, their family, their children, their pets, take all the attention off their cell phone, their computer, their cars, their material things, take all the attention off where they're sitting, where they need to be, where they're from, and they no longer are thinking about the predictable future or the familiar past. That's the moment they become pure consciousness. That's the moment they're no longer aware of anything physical and material. And that's when the brain begins to change the most. And we discover that we have to take the person to a point where they want to stop and push them past that point. That's when the brain changes the most. And people talk about becoming more conscious. The only way you become more conscious is by catching yourself going unconscious. And the more you catch yourself going unconscious, the less unconscious you'll be and the more conscious you'll become. When we're living in stress and living in survival, the arousal is causing us to shift our attention from one person to another meeting, to another object, to another thing. And every one of those elements has a neurological network in the brain. Stress hormones causes the brain to fire incoherently. And when the brain's incoherent, we're incoherent. And that's when we get over-focused. That's when we get obsessive. That's when we overanalyze, overthink. So we discovered when you do the exact opposite, go from this kind of narrow focus, this over-focus, to broadening your focus and sensing space, going from a convergent focus to a divergent focus. The act of sensing and no longer analyzing and thinking causes the analytical mind to become suppressed. And that's when the door between the conscious mind and the subconscious mind opens up. And now you can drop into the operating system where all those programs are, and you can begin to change them.
If you're in the river of change, man, the hardest part about that is not making the same choice. And the lack, when you restrain yourself from making the known choice, it's incredibly uncomfortable because you're stepping into the unknown. And you can't predict, right? And you can't control. And people run back and they go back to the familiar and they say, oh, this feels right. No, that feels familiar. Right? So, but if you give people an understanding, like we've all done this, by the way. Everybody knows what it's like to change. You get very clear on what you want. You get so clear on what you want that you can feel the emotion of when it happens. When you combine a clear intention with an elevated emotion, you're changing your biology. Because the stronger the emotion you feel, the more you remember your choice. That's exactly how we create long-term memories. You have a trauma, a betrayal, whatever, changes your internal state. The brain takes a snapshot and remembers the image, right? And the stronger the emotion, the more you remember it. Well, the stronger the emotion you have for your future, the more you'll remember that vision, right? So we all know how to do this. The challenging part is You got to get very clear on the thoughts you're not going to think. I'm too tired. It's too late. I'm not going to feel good. I'll never change. I can't, whatever. You got to decide like what choices you got to stop making, the things you got to stop doing, the experiences.
Things you got to stop saying.
Yeah.
Excuses you've got to stop.
You got to come right up against that. And even the emotions where I'm too tired, I don't want to, I don't feel good. Those are all the reasons why people don't change. If you're willing to go past, I can, it's too hard, I want to lay down, I want to quit, I'm tired. If you're willing to go past that, you're willing to get past that personality. If you're willing to get past the agitation or the impatience or the judgment and your body's getting aroused, instead of saying, I can't meditate, this is too hard, we tell you what to do, you tame the animal. You settle the body, the animal down, settle the body in its aroused state, back down into the present moment. That's the victory. That's the overcoming process. The need to reach for your cell phone, the need to get up and go do something. Nobody else is getting up and doing anything. When you start feeling that urge to get up and do something and you say to your body, Now you get back here and you settle the body back down again. You're executing a will that's greater than the program, and that's the victory. That's the overcoming process. And the only way you get good at becoming conscious is actually catching yourself when you go unconscious. And you keep doing that enough times, you won't go unconscious, because how many times do we have to forget until we stop forgetting and start remembering? That's the moment of change.
We've all said, I have this vision, and you wrote down the things that you needed, the choices you were going to make and the things you were going to do and your goals and your experiences, and you got worked up and you felt the emotions. And then you said something really brilliant, like, I'm going to write down the thoughts that are going to stop me from my future. I can't, it's too hard, it's this person's fault. Get really clear, because when those thoughts come up, they can't slip by your awareness unchecked by you. What choices do I have to stop making? That's the hardest part about change. Stop making the same choice as you did the day before. You're going to be uncomfortable. Okay, I'm going to be uncomfortable. I know that. I got to stop these habits. I can't complain. I can't blame. I can't make excuses. This is now you're out of the bleachers and you're on the playing field, because that's to know thyself, right? And when you're in the jar, you can't read the label. So you got to get outside the jar, right? And so you got to constantly observe the self. Let me remind myself what emotions I'm not going to feel, what experiences I want to stay away from with certain people at certain times. That is the breaking the habit of the old self. But at the same time, if I could become so conscious of my unconscious self that I won't go unconscious and default, that's a victory, right? Now I'm overcoming my past self, and then could I create a future self, right? So then how do I want to think? What do I want to believe? A belief is just a thought you keep thinking over and over again. Let me just keep remembering to think this way. If you keep remembering to think this way, nerve cells that fire together, wire together. You start creating a new voice in your head. How will I behave differently? Let me close my eyes and rehearse how I'm going to be in this circumstance. Let me review it. And what emotions could I feel? If I keep thinking differently, if I keep acting differently, if I keep feeling differently, and I'm embodying the qualities and characteristics of an abundant person, my life should change. And I'm going to see if that's the truth. And that's what you prove to yourself. And as I said, your belief in yourself has to be earned. No one's going to do that for you. No one's going to come for you. The person who does it every day, all of a sudden they reach this point where they feel worthy. Like they feel really worthy. I've put my time in. I've made great strides. I'm happy with myself. And that's when it all starts to change. That's the moment we look for.
I think contemplation then becomes a dying art. Because
you mean literally a contemplative practice?
No. I mean just sitting down.
Oh, you mean just brain
on the porch, looking out, and just allowing your mind to just think about things, not think about your problems, but think about the nature of reality, or just think about things. Because if you're relying on images and stimulation, you can't think for yourself. Yeah. And if you can't think for yourself, you'll never think for yourself. Yeah,
makes sense.
And so now you're easily programmed and easily controlled. And what's the best way to control people? Control their emotions. Yeah. You can control their emotions, you can control their attention.